Absolutely devastating loss to Oklahoma State for the Cyclones. Now, will Iowa State bounce back? Can Iowa State bounce back? Today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Shout out to you for being here every day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking all about the Stillwater Shocker, breaking down that game. Where does Iowa State sit right now, and what's coming up for them in the last few games of the season? Let's just go ahead and dive right on into it, because I'm going to be honest, I don't want to talk about this any more than I have to. Iowa State loses to Oklahoma State 68-74. Absolute heartbreaker. I am not going to lie. I will say this. I don't know exactly what I said in my preview for this game. Sue me. Okay. I know that I was kind of looking a little bit optimistic. Hey, maybe there's a chance that this loss isn't the end of the world. Kind of depends on who plays. We didn't know exactly what was going to go down as far as will Keyshawn play. Spoiler, Curtis played, Keyshawn did not. And like I said, I was trying to be optimistic. As it stands right now, I've completely thrown all of that out the window, and I am hitting the panic button. This is not good. This is so bad. So bad. Okay, let's break it down. Like I said, 68-74 your final score. Iowa State falls to Oklahoma State. Your leading scorer in this one for the Cyclones, Joshua Jefferson, with 17. Then you had Nate Heise. Pause for dramatic effect there. I did say Nate Heise. Yes, your second leading scorer for the Cyclones with 13. Then Curtis Jones off the bench with 11. Milan Momcilovic with 10. Taman Lipsey with 9. Your top 5 there. Just an all-around horrendous game. Okay. I'm going to be completely honest. Now, the first thing that everybody's going to look at, and I am as well, is Iowa State, excuse me, I'm getting choked up thinking about it, was scored on points off turnovers. Okay. You know, the points that come right after you turn over the ball, points off turnovers, outscored 24-10. Wow. Okay. Then in the paint, they are actually outscored 36-28. And at the foul line, okay, 3 places you don't really want to be outscored. I'm not going to lie. Now, from the foul line, what happened there, because I do want to highlight it a little bit, Oklahoma State goes 18-22. Pretty good percentage, 81.8% per ESPN's mathematics there. You only missed 4 on 22 attempts. Iowa State, 12 of 20, missed 8 of their 20 attempts. That leads a 60% hit rate there. So what? You lose 8 points there. You leave 8 points in the stratosphere effectively, and you lose by 6. Now, does making those free throws change the outcome of the game? Maybe, because it's going to change the path of the way that the game is played. But I mean, they're free, right? Let's go. If it's free, it's for me. You know what I mean? I don't know. Apparently, Iowa State did not have that same mentality the other night. And this one was just horrible to watch. It really was. Some are calling it the worst loss of TJ Otzelberger's career here at Iowa State. And to be completely honest, I sort of agree. This team being what it is, who they are, this one is very historically bad. Okay. Now, Curtis Jones coming back with an illness. How full was he? He played, 29 minutes. So he's out there quite a bit. Now, Deshaun Jackson only played 22, but other than that, I mean, he's in the top 5 of minutes. So he's expected to kind of be putting up starters out there. He goes 2 of 8 from the floor, 1 of 3 from the 3-point line. Did go 6 of 8 from the free throw line. That's good. But ends up with that 11 point. And I will say, we aren't expecting Curtis to be that leading scorer every single game. We've seen, Iowa State win games in which Curtis was not the leading scorer. That's fine. That's totally fine. I am so concerned about this team as a whole right now. 18 turnovers. 18 turnovers. Unacceptable. TJ said it. This is unacceptable. This won't happen again. It sounds harsh, and I honestly hate that. I hate that those are the words we're using right now, but it is. That's the reality of the situation. Simply unacceptable. This is not the Iowa State we have been talking about. And I will say, obviously, we'll talk more about kind of where is this team right now and compared to the past in the second segment. So I'm not going to go into that, but I had to bring it up right away. Very important. Now, shout out Oklahoma State. They showed up. And that's the Big 12 for you. I mean, I'll just put it as that. These teams come in. There's always going to be parity in the Big 12. These teams want to take down the top of the top. And Iowa State, without a Keyshawn, overlooking Oklahoma State potentially. I don't know, but it kind of seemed like it. I will say the only, I guess, bright spot is the rebounding wasn't like super lopsided. Iowa State ends up actually winning in all three facets, OD and total rebounds. So that's, I guess, good. 15 assists on the 24 makes. There were some bright spots in this game, though they were few and far between. There were some moments of great ball movement. There were some moments of just general good basketball play. Milan with a transition kind of hesitation, it drive inside. Great. Looked awesome. That's why we're happy he's back out there. Now, I will say, it felt like Iowa State was shooting a lot more threes, and they just never really got to the point where they weren't making them at the right times. And it feels like sometimes Keyshawn's that guy that kind of puts out the fire. Oklahoma State just went on run after run. And I don't know if the 3-point thing is a tiredness issue. It felt like this team didn't have the attack that they normally do. Iowa State obviously got close. I think it was 2 minutes left. They were down 4. And it's like, okay, now there's a chance. Now there's a real chance that Iowa State can stay in this. And then the rest of the game, just like, what is happening? What is going on? Iowa State falls 68-74. This is horrible. I mean, this is going to happen, right? That's the Big 12 for you. But at the same time, totally unacceptable. That's the only word for it. And I honestly wish I had started with that earlier, because that is literally how it is. Now, Joshua Jefferson had what felt like a little bit of a legacy game. Big block at one point. Comes from the other side of the hoop underneath. Boom. Needed the shutdown. Got it. 17 points. 7 of 10 from the floor. Hit a 3. Shot a 3. Joshua Jefferson came to play. Now, I'm not calling out everyone's effort here on a one-by-one basis. I am just saying I do think Joshua Jefferson, for the most part, was there. Now, he also had 7 turnovers. That kind of sticks out like a sore thumb a little bit. So there is that. This team has had turnover issues for too long. And we'll talk about that more next. But this one was ugly. There are a lot of upset Iowa State fans. I'm sure you're one of them. I personally am as well. Definitely lost a streak in the top 10 here. We're looking at, I don't even know what seed now, maybe a 3 or a 4 seed. We'll touch on that a little bit later too. This is not a good loss. There are these quality losses. You see me throw that word around because other people throw that word around. I put quotations around it every time, because what does that really mean? I know for a fact this was not one of those. This was ugly, horrible. I mean, now I will give Iowa State this tiny grain of salt. This is a little bit of a trap game. Okay, Oklahoma State now 6-11 in conference, 5-11 going into this game. Just not at that caliber. You're still, maybe Curtis has maybe got a little bit of that illness, getting his lungs back a little bit. Team's maybe still like tired. And you've got to go into Stillwater where it's not the same environment. There's not a ton of, you're on the road, right? But in Stillwater, it's like, but I'm not giving them that much credit. That is like a tiny, turn it up to 11. We're at like a 0.01 of the reason of that meter. I just, what I'm saying is that just doesn't matter that much, but it was something you have to consider. But 26-40 at the half, Iowa State never led in this game against Oklahoma State. as I said, I believe it was in the squad show, a team that couldn't really. I'm sure almost everyone in Stillwater is concerned more about their wrestling team than their men's basketball team. Rightfully so, dogs. But this was, come on now. Now this loss hurts. This was a big one. What does this mean? Is Iowa State still a Final Four caliber team? We'll talk about it coming up right after this. Attention, Locked On Cyclones shows fans. The future of college sports is here and it's transparent. Before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the athletes they love. Now, with Roy, you get to be a part of the change and support Iowa State athletes in the most transparent way possible. Roy, the NIL app, allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, and receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app is giving fans control. No more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Iowa State athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and a real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Iowa State loses to Oklahoma State. The Stillwater Stunner, some are calling it. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Keep that in mind as the words that are about to come out of my mouth go into your ears. Okay? Lock in here, because we are now about to talk about, is Iowa State still a Final Four caliber team? My answer, yes, they are on their best days. But now we are starting to see the glaring side of this team, which I'm sure I used that word incorrectly, that phrase incorrectly. But when this team does not play well, that they are not. Is Oklahoma State, I mean, this is a team that Iowa State, in theory, the level of team that Iowa State could face in the first round. You go out there with 18 turnovers and what seemed like a complete lack of effort. And this team with a bad draw is out round one, potentially now with seed slippage. Maybe round two, depending. It just depends on the draw, to be completely honest. But this team just has no fire right now. So is Iowa State still a Final Four caliber team? Are they that caliber? Yeah, on their best nights, yeah. Yeah, they're a good team. Great team, even. Some of the best. Because to be completely honest, when this team is fully healthy, they are still very good. And I will cling to that like I'm clinging to those little blades on the helicopter as it's like flying away and they're hanging on and they're swinging. It's like action movie type deal. I'll hang on like that to that. I think this seems like 19-1 when Milan plays and the whole team's out there. Because obviously they're 3-4, game skid there, 3-4 over the 7 in the last two now. Not great, but you're missing either Milan, Keyshawn, or Curtis and Keyshawn in those. But that does not, the best ability is availability, right? This team needs to wheel out their starters to be a top team. We know that now. Now, I thought after the loss to Houston, we might be in a different spot here. To be completely honest, I really thought, okay, maybe, in it really tight with maybe one of the best teams in the nation in Houston. Maybe we'd be okay against like an Oklahoma State with nobody. Who knows? Maybe if Curtis and Keyshawn are both out in that game, you can still handle Oklahoma State. There's a chance. There is certainly a chance. Well, that was not the case. Chance does not mean certain. We learned that the hard way. So what does Iowa State need to do to get back to that Final Four caliber? Well, apparently everyone needs to be on the floor. Okay. This team needs to get going early. They kept up with Oklahoma State. They got it close at the end. This team came firing at the end, sort of. But you can't come out and just lollygag around and get down 14 at the half in a game in which you're a 10-point favorite. That's 24 points behind what the books are saying, essentially, kind of, in a way. depending on how you want to look at it. That's not really, I hate the word, but that's just unacceptable. And TJ said it, so I feel like I can say it. That's just not, you can't do that. And so what happens when Iowa State gets matched up? Maybe they're a 5 seed. Let's just hypothetically throw that out there. How often do 12 and 5 seed upsets happen? I don't know the exact number. I didn't look it up beforehand. Probably should have. I just don't really even want to look, because what if Iowa State's a 5 seed? But I think it's probably happened the last 180 years. Something like that. That very well could be this Iowa State team. They go out and 18 turnovers, 24-10 differential. You shoot 60% from the line. Recipe for upset. Recipe. I mean, that's like, what are we? That's right there. That is it. Now this team, it could be so good. It really could. Curtis, Jones when he's hot, Milan, what he brings to the table, Jefferson on the inside, Taman Lipsy and his effort. This team has the the ceiling of Final Four. Dare I even say national champion? I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that. Feel like I want to, but should I after that game? Obviously, yesterday we talked about, is Iowa State, is BYU the best team in the Big 12 right now? I said no, it's Houston. But I saw a lot of people talking about Iowa State's ahead of BYU, or at least they would have been before this Stillwater game. Yes. Before Oklahoma State, there was a very real conversation around, okay, the injuries are real. You're missing your dude in Milan Momcilovic for 7 games. You have a losing record in those 7 games. Shows how important he is. He comes back, you win 4 in a row. Boom. Then you're missing 2 of your top scorers, and you lose to a Houston in a game in which it's pretty close. That is like, okay, this team's, they're there. They're still there. Get their dudes back on the floor. They'll be fine. Shoot. Maybe even without them after the Houston loss, like I just was talking about. Now, you are almost at full strength. You're only missing Keyshawn, and potentially there's some Curtis getting his legs back, getting his lungs back. And it wasn't a blowout, but it wasn't close. It was close for a second. There was a minute, in there where I was like, okay, maybe Iowa State has a chance. Never led. So, all of that to say, the floor is around a 64 exit. This team's making the tournament. Okay. They are. But, dare I say it, there is a very real chance they get a bad draw. They come out flat, a 12 seed, a 13 seed comes out and they're fiery. They're pumped. They're in the tournament, baby. Let's go. We got our shot. And Iowa State's like, well, we're here. Let's see what happens. And then you're down 12 early and you're fighting from underneath the entire time. The team that, they're just so hot, whoever it is. They're like, oh my gosh, we're destroying Iowa State. That's going to help with their confidence. It's going to be tough to turn that around. It's not off the table. But Iowa State, very real chance as well that they just get wicked hot. Everybody stays healthy. And boom. See you on Final Four weekend. See you in the national championship, baby. There's a chance. I'm not saying it's not impossible, or that it's impossible, excuse me. But I can see both sides of the coin now. And I don't think I would have said that a week ago. No, I know I wouldn't have said that a week ago. Now we're sitting in this boat. Like, I really don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what the rest of this postseason looks like for Iowa State. I just no longer have a good idea. Speaking of the postseason, we got to get there. Okay, we got a few games left. Let's break that down. It's coming up right after this. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day, you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Iowa State after the loss to Oklahoma State. Things are looking a little bit grim. I'm not going to lie. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. What's left for the Cyclones? What is remaining on the plate? You're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner. You've made it through the turkey. You've made it through the mashed potatoes. Now you're looking at the sides that you kind of threw on there because your aunt was watching you while you're in line. You didn't really want the pea casserole, but you got to throw it on there. She's sitting right there. You throw it on. Now you're staring down the rest. What's on the plate still? What is still out there for the Cyclones to take on? 3 games before the postseason. 3 opportunities, the way I look at it. That's what I'm saying. Iowa State will take on Arizona on Saturday, 8 p.m. tip-off. That'll be a game. Then they'll take on top 25 BYU coming in at 25 overall on the 4th, and Kansas State on the 8th. Okay, so that is Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, for those of you who count your days in days, not dates. Very similar, not the same. Now, what does that mean? Okay, I've got a few opinions on this. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, unfortunately. If I did know, I probably would have mentally prepared myself for that Oklahoma State loss. Now, let's look at it from this lens. Opportunities galore. Iowa State taking on Arizona at home now after the tough loss in Tucson. Great opportunity. Get some mojo back here, okay? Obviously, a top 25 team going to help the resume a little bit. There is hope that Keyshawn will be back for this game. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, as we get through the week. There was hope that he'd be back in practice, but we weren't really given a time frame, to my knowledge. So if we've got the full team back, maybe how do you approach that? How's the team going to do with everybody back on the floor? Win over an opponent that effectively broke our hearts, okay, with that 48-foot love shot. So that's a huge one. Then you go and you face BYU at home yet again. Back-to-back home games. Big deal here. Big deal. Okay. That's another opportunity. Another top 25 win for the Cyclones. Get a little bit more momentum. Then you've got Kansas State and the team that broke your home win streak. As much as how I hate all of that stuff from the team standpoint, it feels like it puts unnecessary pressure on them. I hope that they're keeping the noise out. Honestly, I hope none of them listen to this. I hope everyone's got tunnel vision right now. Just blinders are on, focused on the next game. That being said, they do not obviously forget the loss to Kansas State, whether it broke a record or not. So or a streak, excuse me. So they'll be looking for Kansas State as well. 3 games, 2 revenge, very much a chance for the Cyclones to get some mojo back here. A couple quality wins. Kansas State, maybe not going to make the tournament. Pretty unlikely as far as I know. But they got hot for a minute there. Of course, it was when we faced them. Now, the other side of this is let's only look at this as wins for now. I don't really want to talk about it as if they're losses, but maybe someday we'll have to. For now, excuse me, man, my throat's dry. These wins, what could they do, right? Can they get momentum for this team? Maybe. I hate that I have to say maybe there. I worry that these 3 games will not get enough momentum for this Iowa State team. There's a chance they win these 3 games and stay flat. I hate that. Why? Why would that be the case? Just depends on the nature. Depends on the nature of the loss. Now, it does help that 2 of the 3 are at home. And it's very helpful that this first one's at home. Arizona, BYU, bang, bang, home win, home win. You're back in front of the crowd. You remember what you're doing it for. You get a big win, you get a big win. The nature in which you win those games obviously is going to matter. Is it a buzzer beater? Is it a dominant game? I think I'd rather have a buzzer beater at this point. I think that's just going to pump a little bit more juice into this team. And you know what they say? The sauce is like that long-term, really savory. The juice is that short-term, right? We need them both. I think this team has sauce, but they've lost a little bit of it. They need some juice to pump that back up. This team needs it. So Get a little bit of juice from a buzzer beater over Arizona. Get a little bit of juice in an absolute, what do you want to call it? A shootout, like a super high scoring game, or maybe it gets down to 42-45 final minutes. I don't care what the final score is so much. It's a defensive showdown. That's fine with me. If that's what it's going to take over BYU, both of which are at home, going to be huge. Then you got Kansas State on the road. Obviously, the last game of the season on the road, helpful in some ways, does hurt maybe the potential for gained momentum. But I do worry that these 3 games, if they are not basically done to perfection, Iowa State might not be able to get the momentum they need. There's a chance they can. There's a very real, I do think it's a very real possibility that they can. But I do kind of wonder 3 games effectively in a week. 1 to 8 on the dates there for you dates people. It's just not a lot of time. You need a little bit of more than that, a little bit more time under the belt, a little bit more longevity. And maybe this team's able to look past what is now 2 losing streaks. Not 2 isolated losses like Auburn or West Virginia. 2 losing streaks. 3-game skid, 2-game skid. And say, hey, we were great before, that West Virginia whole deal. Kind of went through a rough patch. We were really good when we had everyone back for those 4 games. And now we find ourselves in this position. We're back to what we've been. We're fine. That'd be great. But I do worry that in the back of their mind, they're going to remember Oklahoma State. In the back of their mind, they're going to remember what it was like when they didn't have everybody on the floor. I do worry about that. So that being said, now those are both, if they win all those games, type of scenarios. Can they lose a few of these games? Well, realistically, I think they could probably lose them all, and they'll still make the tournament. Their seed will go out the window. And, I will say I got my opinion changed on this a little bit over the last few days, especially now with the loss to Oklahoma State. I was making the argument, doesn't matter what seed we are, we're going to be fine. That was when I thought this team was an absolute juggernaut, and I expected nothing less than the Elite 8. You do have to consider, this was brought to my attention through the interwebs, the lower seed you are, the more great teams you face. You still have to beat who's in front of you. That's how it works. But at the end of the day, realistically, you don't want to play like 6 really good teams. That's not what you want to do. Rather play like 1 or 2 really good teams. Basically get a couple buys, which I do not want Iowa State approaching games thinking they're buys anymore. That Oklahoma State game that was your buy. It's over now. Excuse me. It's over. No, now we're past the buys. We are locked in. We're going. So can they lose these games? I think they can from a numbers standpoint. I don't think they can afford to lose these games. They can maybe afford to lose one of these first 2 at home. And preferably, I'd make it the Arizona game. I'd pick BYU. Oof. What would I do? I'm talking myself out of both because you don't want to lose the first one because you've lost to Arizona twice now, but you don't want to lose the second one because then you're splitting the last 3. You lose to Arizona, it's a 3-game loss streak. You lose to BYU, you've lost all your momentum from the win over Arizona. I don't know. I'm going to take the stance that they need to win all 3 of these. You can't lose the last game of the season. I just talked about why you can't lose the first or the second of these 3. Just from a momentum standpoint, from confidence standpoint, this team needs all the boost they can get right now, all the confidence, all the momentum, all the juice to get back to where they are, a Final Four caliber team. Because this is the team to do it. This is an unbelievable team. I'm not quitting on this team yet. I am not writing them off. But that was an absolutely abysmal showing against Oklahoma State, and they need to turn it around. You got 3 games left here. Gain some momentum, get some confidence back, get your mojo, gain the juice. The sauce is already there. Run away with it. Run off into the sunset with a national championship. This is the team to do it. Can they? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. Thank you for sticking around. If you're still here and not subscribed, what are you doing? It's free. We're proving it's a Cyclone State. I'll catch you guys as I mentally recover from this Oklahoma State game and we prep for Arizona coming right up. Until next time, Cyclone fans. Sayonara.